Hey, do you remember like about 15 years ago when I was up your way and we went to that farmers market thing? You remember?
Um,
I
what?
was up there to see my sister
What? Where was it?
up near you.
Oh, wait, did we meet in Gettysburg?
Yeah,
Yeah?
you remember that?
I kind of, I had forgotten all about that, but now
See,
that you mention it,
what is that kind of memory called?
it's a recovered memory.
Is it recovered or is it just flat out fake?
Well, that's the thing. That's kind of what we're going to be talking about tonight is recover. And I think they are calling it, I was making a different names for it last week, but I believe it is recovered memories
Is it?
or repressed memories.
There was
Uh,
another name for it because I was
um,
looking it up on YouTube and they were calling it something else. Just false memories. Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Do you remember hanging out with us in Gettysburg?
We were at the farmer's market.
We
Kathy
were.
bought me a pumpkin, and
It
she's
was the
shorter than me.
That's right. It was the fall.
Kathy's much shorter than me, too, by the way.
I am. I'm much shorter than most people, but I'm much shorter than Demon.
Right.
Anyway. Although I have to wait, little aside, we're already going off the rails. Hi, everybody. Here we are going off the rails. So apparently, I'm only 5'2", but um, I apparently think I'm much taller than that because my friend Erin, who I co-author the mystery novels with, she pointed out that when I describe anybody, I say, I don't know, they were kind of short. And she's like, you're shorter than everyone, and you describe everyone as kind of short. And
You
I'm
have
like,
a big, you have a big
I
personality.
guess it's amazing to me, though. I'm always like, yeah, I don't know, they're kind of short. And so anyway, that's the aside. But hey, welcome everyone. Um, we are talking about Satanic Panic and false recovered uh created memories because we are going to talk about two books um, that really defined, and actually, I think you could argue that the first book, Michelle Remembers, single handedly sort of created Satanic Panic. I mean, it really got people scared about ritual abuse and that there were cults out there torturing people and sacrificing children and sacrificing adults and reproducing with Satan himself.
Plus,
Okay,
they made everyone convinced that they had these repressed memories that they were too painful to
repressed. That was,
remember as a child.
yes, yes. So the first one we're going to talk about is Michelle Remembers, and the title is pretty self-explanatory. Michelle
What was
remembers,
that?
but does she remember the truth? That is the question. So that was written by, excuse me, Michelle Smith. I believe it's Michelle Smith, and her therapist Lawrence Pastor. Um,
Mm.
we'll get into the story behind Michelle and Lawrence, but so apparently, I did not know this. I just recently learned this. She had already been in therapy with Lawrence for 4 years before any of this happened, before she suddenly had these memories coming back to her. But something was becoming very popular in therapy at this time period, which this book was written in 1980. So it's right at the beginning of the 80s Satanic Panic. Like I said, you could argue this set the ball rolling even more than The Exorcist, although we can blame The Exorcist for a lot.
Everything.
Um, she'd been in therapy for 4 years, and hypnotherapy was coming into vogue.
That was really big.
And even though the book itself never says that he hypnotized her, all the language implies like because he wrote the book. So already we've got his take on what's going on, his angle, which is pretty hilarious because he has habits of describing himself as like, handsome but mild mannered and like lots of very like praising himself and describing her in kind of childish ways, which is a little disturbing too. But anyway, 4 years into therapy, and suddenly she's now having all of these memories. But
Mhm.
hypnosis was becoming popular. People were going and being hypnotized to stop smoking, lose weight.
Yeah, it was huge. It was a
It was,
big thing.
it was. And I mean, I think people still do try that, but
Back then, there were literally people that would travel around and they would have like, conventions and people could like get hypnotized real quick to lose weight.
ex
All kinds
ex
of stuff.
exactly. And like I said, it never says in the book specifically that he's hypnotizing her, but he's using language like she came back from her memory or she came out from her whatever. So it's, she's definitely under. And also, interestingly, there's a lot of reference to stairs, which if anybody's ever done a hypnotism, like trying to hypnotize with like a podcast or whatever, it's always you're going downstairs.
Doing meditation.
You're going
You
down.
do the step down
Yeah,
because it
and
lowers
she,
your brain into that. What is it? Is it theta?
yeah,
I
I never can remember those,
don't know what it is.
but yes. So there's just a lot of language. Like even her memories include stairs, like lots of going downstairs to these dark cult rooms or whatever. So we already have a little issue with how much was he manipulating her memories, because we have now found out that that is true, that you can actually create memories for somebody that never happened. In doing this, and this book being huge, and one thing that made me laugh, because you can't find the book anymore, it's out of print because it wasn't true and it was touted as a true story, so they kind of pulled it off the shelves. So now if you find one, it's very expensive. But I was looking at it online. I don't know if any of you all, and I bet you there's going to be plenty of you out there that remember this, the V.C. Andrews books for Flowers in the Attic, the original artwork with those very sort of ghostly looking children with the like gray blue pallor.
Yep.
Well, the cover of Michelle Remembers is exactly like that. It looks like it could be a V.C. Andrews book. It's this girl, young girl, all that eerie coloring, holding a baby doll, and over the top of her head is like a looming, leering demon, which in the book we come to know is Satan. We're not even messing around with these side demons. It's Satan. It's Satan. Yeah, no demons, straight to Satan. We're going to the big kahuna,
Right to the big guy.
the big guy. Um, so anyway, do you have any questions? People out there, do you have any questions?
What kind of questions you got? Well, plus, if you think about it, when you're doing a step down, because actually, this is kind of funny. I was learning, I forget the name of what this, it was a thing back in the 60s and 70s. It'll probably come to me later. But it was not really a mind control group, but a lot of celebrities would use it to help them. And you basically brainwash yourself and you would do your own step down. And before, when my kid was real little, I would try to get him to go to sleep. He didn't want to go to sleep. So I would do a step down meditation for him where he would like relax different parts of his body. And then eventually, by the time I got done to his toes, he was asleep. But if you, because you're telling them, okay, we're going to go down the stairs, and you start talking about going down the stairs, when you ask that child later, do you remember when we went down the stairs? They automatically remember physically going down the stairs because you've implanted a memory, and memory is only imagination because you have to imagine what happened and then you pull in all of the details that seem logical. So obviously a child, it's real easy, when you're dealing with children, to just implant memories and just be like, do you remember when this happened? And then they try to imagine it, and then all of a sudden it becomes a memory. So it's pretty easy. Plus, he gave her the stairs, like you said. She kept talking about stairs because he implanted that memory into her head.
Well, and then you have the added um that there appeared to be a bit of an attraction, which comes to fruition between Dr. Pastor and Michelle.
Mhm.
So now you can also argue that he's paying a lot of attention to her. You know, all these memories are coming out, and he's the only one who can help her with them. But anyway, so now, this is the only man who can help her. He's helped her recover these memories, and he's helping her work through them. But there's definitely a romantic interest going on here. And in the little excerpts from the book I read, it reads romance novelly in moments. Not they don't go into the actual romance, but just the way he describes her or describes himself.
He was getting friendly with his patient. Isn't that
Yes,
illegal, or at least not ethical
it
for a
is.
psychiatrist or psychologist or whatever he was to be having a relationship with his patient?
It was very not ethical, and it went so far as to a married man, she was married as well. They
And they
eventually
were
married.
they were married. I didn't know
They
they
were
were
both,
both married to different people.
yep. And yep,
Oh,
so they did eventually end up married. And I actually don't know how long they've stayed together because interestingly, Michelle is still alive and well and has never addressed this book, has never recanted anything, even though, as you all can tell by our story thus far, the whole story unravels. It all ends up being proven not to be true. There was no satanic ritual abuse. There is actual proof that. So the story, I guess I should tell you what she recalls. She recalls that her mother gave her to a satanic cult when she was small. I want to say about 5 or 6,
mhm.
and that she was with them. She saw lots of abuse. She experienced abuse. There were human sacrifices that she claimed she saw. She saw Satan. In fact, Satan actually is a character in the book. So Satan appears. She actually, this was my favorite thing. She recalls in one of her sessions that they surgically implanted horns and a tail onto her.
Surgically.
Yes, but there's no scars. So how do they get around this? Because she has no scarring, no signs of abuse. Well, and in the book, it ends with because, of course, she does find religion to save her.
Of course.
And the Virgin Mary comes to her and heals all her scars. And this is why she has no scarring because the Virgin Mary came to her and saved her.
That
Um,
happens sometimes.
and this is written by a therapist who is saying that this is true. This truly happened. Now, I know there's a lot of people who hold the Virgin Mary in very high esteem isn't the right, but it's a very important figure in their life. I'm not knocking that, but it seems a little convenient that you now have no scars because now the Virgin Mary has come and taken the scars away from you. You are not, but you did have scars from a horns and a tail. And by the way, like, when did this happen? Like, did she have scars for a period of time that somebody could, verify? Yeah, she did have some strange scarring. No, none of that is ever
Yeah, like a
proven.
doctor checkup might have noticed you've got these really weird scars.
Exactly. But then on top of that, she's claiming her mother gave her away, but they have actual records of her being in school in the time periods that she said she was with the cult and living with the cult. Um,
I saw something where people were talking about how you couldn't really disprove some of the stuff she said, and a lot of people were believing her until she got to the part where she literally saw Satan in person. And then it was like, okay, this is a bit much.
right,
This is
right. I mean, that's the thing is it just got more and more outlandish because of course, as the hypnosis is going and the stories have to get better, I guess. And and then on top of that, there was a real philosophy in all of Satanic Panic that was no evidence is actually the evidence. They really, really went with this whole theme of like, well, there is no sign of that. So that must be true then. They're hiding it. And like, so how do you argue? How do you argue no evidence is the evidence? I mean,
Just like, how do you tell if it's a witch with the
yeah,
whole drowning?
exactly. Which brings us to kind of what what we were kind of mentioning. We had a little chit chat. You'll probably get to see some because that's what we do. Um, we had been talking about the fact that Satanic Panic, while it became like huge in the 80s and 90s, just absolutely huge. And again, we've talked about all the influences of that. The Exorcist, of course, this Michelle remembers just because she went on all the talk show circuits. This was treated like truth. I mean, she
Wasn't
had
she on
been in.
Oprah?
And she was, I think she was probably on that Geraldo. Remember, Geraldo did the big, we were talking about that Satanic Panic or some kind of moral panic has existed for all of probably humanity. We had the witch hunts. Of course, now we've had all of the conspiracy theories that have gone around the politicians. And of course, we're going to briefly touch on some of them, like Epstein. It's starting to,
Pizzagate.
well, yeah, Pizzagate, but, you know, but it's starting to be like, again, like, is there some truth to this? It's easy to understand how people bought into it because, and especially back in the 80s when you didn't have the ability to research things yourself the same way. So if you buy a book that says it's a true story and you're reading this, why wouldn't you believe it? If you turn on Oprah or Geraldo or Donahue and they're saying this really happened to these people, of course, people believed it, even though it was outlandish. I mean, most of it was so out there that it's like, and when we get into next week, the McMartin daycare, you're going to see how out there it got, and people were still believing it.
Oh, is
So,
that next week's? I thought that was this week's.
no,
I
this is,
watched I watched the wrong stuff today.
you're ready for next week.
I was like, why
Actually,
are we not talking about the daycare? I thought we were talking about the daycare.
no, this time was supposed to be just the books that started it.
Oh,
And
this
then
is
we were going to
any
go
other
into
book.
the
Okay.
case, because that was, I think McMartin was the first legal that it actually went to the courts. So I think that even beat Judas Priest with the
Oh, I
backmasking.
would say it was
Yeah.
the most expensive trial in U.S. history.
Yeah.
I did read. I saw that.
Then so we're gonna do because that one's a real deep dive too. That one we can talk about for quite some time because it was a mess
That
and
one
really
was great.
destroyed lives. That one is a little hard to laugh at. We can kind of chuckle at like these invented memories because nobody really got hurt. Except for maybe you could argue that Michelle got used by her therapist, but and probably honestly, if she was believing these were real experiences, that's pretty damaging. But
Plus, if
um,
she was married, I don't know if she had a family or not. I'm sure her husband wasn't real thrilled about the situation
mm-mm. No, no.
because he was
And
obviously having to deal with her coming home from therapy going, I was abused by Satan.
right, how do you even handle that? I mean, how does a spouse like you had to know that he had to have had some like I got some questions for you about this. And especially how much time you're spending with your therapist. Like it's getting a little strange all the way around. So, I mean, it was definitely strange for the his wife because they gave an example of he was on vacation. He was supposed to be going away for a month and he would just answer the phone whenever she would call and be on the phone for hours with her because she was having these memories that he had to sit and walk her through. And I'm like, this is insane. Like, but ended up, yeah, it ended up being proved because there was ways to prove it. I mean, there were no missing people reported. There were no missing babies because one of her big things was that babies were being sacrificed. Well, finally, but you know what? This is a really interesting twist. And I don't know if publishing companies are the same, but I would almost guess they are. You can say it's a true story because it's her account and not verify. The publishing house isn't going to verify any of that. So they didn't verify, they just accepted this was her true story. And so they put that on the book. But then it turns out no missing people, no, no missing children. She was verified at being in school on the days she was supposed to be with the cult. None of the cult members or their victims ever came forward to say anything. Of course, maybe the cult members wouldn't, but you would think there would be other victims who would have something to say about
You
this.
would think Oprah would have learned her lesson by now because she's had quite a few true stories. The authors come on there just to be proven completely wrong. I mean, absolute made
Mm-hmm.
up. Like the guy that claimed that he was in Auschwitz, I think it was, and yet he told his story and it was so touching, and I think he was telling like the story, someone else's story that he had known, and then he just made up a whole bunch of stuff. He exaggerated.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. And then here's the thing, once this hit big, then we have another person come along who wrote a book in 1983 called Satan's Underground, which was also about her as a child being in a satanic cult. Her name was Laurel Rose Wilson. We could say her name was Laurel Rose Wilson because she has many names. And this one didn't even get, so they pretty much verified that Michelle believed this because she was being directed and essentially led into false memories by her psychiatrist, by Dr. Pazder. But um, this person fabricated the whole thing. Nothing was true. Nothing was provable. There wasn't even really any proof that there were recovered memories. Like this was just a work of fiction that she said was true.
Was
This
the
is also
doctor real?
there's no mention of a doctor. This is just her, like her memories coming back to her in waves, I guess. Turns out that her name was really, and I've already lost it in my notes here, but it was Lauren Stratford, I think was her name. So it was not Laurel Rose Wilson. It was Laura, but you can't find her today because she apparently had many aliases. So I actually think that it's pretty safe to say with this, but Satan's underground, she was speaking to churches. She was, she was talking, she was doing basically a tour circuit of her time in the cult. And but as it came to light, she kind of disappeared and now you can't find her. But this is no longer in print either because also listed as a true story. But the whole thing was fabricated. She made the whole thing up and she made a lot of money on those tours and all
She
her
probably
TV
left the
appearances.
country and is living quite nicely with Satan somewhere in the underground.
Well, we can argue it's pretty evil, but yeah. Um, but she actually probably didn't get super super rich because actually her story kind of fell apart quickly, probably because her story didn't stay very consistent, nor did Michelle's for that matter. I mean, that's one of the things is Michelle's memories got more and more elaborate. Even the early ones became more detailed and more elaborate. But yeah, so those were the two books that they basically are saying single-handedly created the whole concept of satanic ritual abuse, that to this day they can't really prove that it ever happened. Not a single case they've never been able to prove. I mean, and we've all heard, I mean, I can remember hearing growing up, oh yeah, there's Satan, there's symbols down on the bridge done by Satanists. Like, really?
But I remember in North Carolina, there's like a rock formation up near waterfalls, and there's some satanic symbol. Well, they're not even satanic symbols. Literally, it's just a freaking pentagram. But the way
Yeah,
society is, that's satanic.
it
And,
is.
and what's so funny is that I used to go to school with a lot of these kids that, would just put pentagrams on everything and try to, you know, dye their hair black and try to look gothic and satanic because it was just edgy and it upset their parents and it made them feel cool, and it put them in a different world than the
Hmm.
normal dude over there playing tennis or something in high school, because it gave them their own special little group. There wasn't anything satanic about it.
No, and actually, if that's something that viewers are interested in, I know a lot of these things have been covered on other podcasts, but they haven't been covered by Vin and I and our take. And I actually don't think many of them have been covered by podcasters who actually lived through this time period. They tend to be done by younger, not that we're old, but um
We are
and
seasoned.
that's right, we're seasoned. Um but if you are interested and you guys can let us know in the comments, a great example of that is the Memphis 3. I don't know if you know that story. That was another one that went down AC. It was children who were killed, so it is a dark one. But it went down a very dark. Oh, you would. It's called the documentary that's excellent is called Paradise Lost. Is the first one. There's three of them.
It sounds
Um,
familiar, but I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I'm sure you know it. But if anyway, if you guys want us to go into that one, that was certainly an example of exactly what Ben's talking about, which is if you choose to be different, maybe dye your hair black and be into occult weird stuff and, heavy metal, then you are obviously going to be guilty of murdering small children. And
It
these
goes with
te-
the territory.
right, and these were just teenagers themselves. So they were really railroaded into just because of how they looked and their interests. Um, they weren't even believably smart enough, or like they were just a hot mess. So like how they thought that they were even organized enough to do what happened, which wasn't very organized, but they still weren't even going to be that organized. So, um,
Now, were
and
we going to talk about Sybil at all?
actually, oh, and I'm so glad you mentioned that because that was mentioned in what I was reading, which was Sybil came out in 1973. So people were already primed. Everybody read that and believed it. And everybody was already primed to believe there could be recovered memories or that you could have repressed all this stuff and a therapist could bring it up. And then, of course, the multiple personalities. So it wasn't like far fetched that Michelle remembers would kind of take off because they were already primed by Sybil of
Yeah,
like,
it was almost like the next step, but
mhm.
add in the satanic stuff, and then you've got a really good book.
Exactly, exactly. And of course, that has been proven to have not been
Yeah,
accurate.
I was watching something about that because I remember reading that in psychology in college, and didn't that wasn't it that she had like 16
Mhm.
personalities? They call it DID now. I'm trying to think of
Dissociative
identity disorder.
disorder. Yeah.
That's what it is. I have a hard time saying
So
disassociate.
I can't say it, and I just have my normal teeth.
But from what records show, she never showed any of those 16 personalities outside of therapy, and he was the one that was feeding her and asking her, talk to me as so and so, or can I speak to
Mhm.
such and such. But outside of that, she never had any history of such things, so that was like,
Well, and the other thing that was interesting in Michelle Remembers is on the so everything was recorded, all their sessions. And because it happened when she was so young, she would go into like a baby talk voice on the so you can almost see that it was like a direct learned, like everybody ate up Sybil, everybody saw it.
yeah.
It had Sally Field in it. So you had to watch it. Um
We
so
watched it too. We read it and watched it in class.
which is really interesting because I would have assumed by then was it already discredited as they no longer believe that was
This was
possible.
in 1999 is when I was in college.
Were they still touting it as real?
Yeah, because we were in abnormal psychology class,
Mm,
and it was like an advanced, and this was supposed to have been legit. So,
wow. Well, yeah, it's kind of, but yeah, that was all totally primed. The second most influential Satanic Panic movie would have been Rosemary's Baby, which of course was Mia Farrow uh, actually being given kind of by her husband to this satanic cult in their apartment building in New York to birth Satan's baby. Um, so these things were already in the, is it zeitgeist? Is that the right
I think
zeitgeist?
so.
In the zeitgeist as far as like, okay, these things, they've already been brought to our attention. We already have Sybil, which is proven that you can have all these personalities and not remember or not even know what the other parts of your mind is doing. And then now we have Michelle remembers. So I mean, everybody was primed to believe this. And then when we go into next week, which you'll be way ready for, McMartin, take care. Um, it was just like so easy for people to buy into this is happening. This is, and I will go so far. I actually have a person, and we always want your stories. So if you have any stories of family members who thought they were knew a satanic cult or heard of a satanic cult, or if you did, but I actually have a direct one, and I won't use any names because I
Oh,
don't know how my friend would feel about this, but his aunt left her husband because she was convinced that he was in a satanic cult and went so far as to say that he was sacrificing animals in the bathtub, none of which was even remotely true. Like, this same woman ended up moving to Arizona because she was dating an alien, and that was the best place to connect with the alien. I don't know if there was really a person or if this was just all in her imagination. I don't know if there was a person who said he was an alien. I have no idea. But she actually left her husband because she was absolutely convinced. And this was just in a small town in Maine. So you can imagine what was going on all over um, the country. I mean, I would love to hear people's stories because I'm sure there were stories, just even rumors of something happening in the town or people who were involved or um,
now there was a guy in the town I used to live in North Carolina, which I won't mention because everybody knows this guy. I guess he's still alive. What do you remember a group? I guess it was back in the 80s, might have been, yeah, it had to have been the 80s. The Moonies.
yeah,
What were the Moonies really? What was going on with them?
I
Because
don't.
this poor guy, he used to come in where I worked at, and he had a lot of mental health issues. They had him highly medicated. Everyone knew him. He lived at a special kind of home, and everyone kind of looked out for him. He would like ride his bike back and forth, but everybody knew him. But he had a lot of trouble speaking. He drooled a lot. I mean, the poor man had gone through, they said he went through some bad stuff during that time period, something about the devil. I don't know what they were doing, but it messed him up for life. I mean, for life. It was so bad. But I don't know much about that particular group. I don't know what they were known for or what their practice was. I just know that he was
That would
beat
be,
up.
yeah, well, the Moonies were very 80s.
He got into it,
And
I guess, as a teenager.
all I know about it was Reverend Moon married all those random strangers. Do you remember? He did it like on national TV. He just had strangers who'd never met and married them all off in like a mass wedding
It,
ceremony. But
there must have been a lot of drugs involved because, from what I understood, that's why he had so many physical problems as well because of the drugs that they had given him. But I don't
we
know.
need to, well, we definitely need to look into the Moonies. And if
I
anybody
don't.
knows any Mooney stories, because that was
I
huge.
I just thought Moonies were people that mooned people. I didn't know, and I'll tell you why. This is a true story. When I was a kid, I was probably like 8, and my aunt, we were in Vermont at the time, and my aunt would pick us up in their stupid brown van. Yeah, that's important. And take us to church. Well, she's got her little John Denver 8-track playing in the van. And we would go this one route, very rural area, and there was this big toy store. I forget the name of it right now, but it was a big toy store. And for some reason, for like 2 weeks straight, every time we would drive by there in the evening, my aunt would yell, "Turn your head, kids, there's those Moonies again." And it was literally people mooning the truck. And of course, we're all trying to look, like, what are you talking about? So as soon as I heard the word Moonies, I'm thinking,
Oh
how is
yeah.
it so bad if he's just in a group that they just moon
Moon.
traffic? What is so bad? How
That
did
is
that make him?
hilarious.
How did that make him be so troubled? I don't
That is, I can see
know.
how you would think that. That makes total sense to me. You
I
know
was
what's really,
I was
it,
sheltered.
you want to know what else is really interesting? Everything's going to come full circle because we have this happen so weird. So again, folks, I work at an assisted living and I handle movie night. I did not pick this movie. One of the residents requested it, but I draw the sign for the movie. I do a little chalk sign and I get the movie ready. We have a popcorn maker. We actually make the popcorn for them like old time. And they requested "Oh God," which is what they watched tonight
Oh, I
when I was
remember.
leaving with George Burns. But
Yes.
guess, do you remember who else was in that?
Hmm.
John Denver was the
Are you
main character.
serious?
So there you go. Somehow we came full circle of Satan, God, John Denver, mooning
We're
people.
so full circle. I think we should all start mooning people now. I should just go out on my patio and just moon people for no reason.
Only if there's somebody driving by going, "Don't look at those moonies."
I remember seeing something very bright white, but I did not know what it was. Apparently, it was a full moon. My uncle would just say something about it's a full moon, and then my aunt would scream at us, "Turn your head, kids!"
Oh my gosh.
And we're like, "What? What?
It
What?"
was, wait, this was coming from church or
On the way to church, or no, I was on the way back because it would be nighttime, and they would be standing out in front of the. Oh, it was called Tuffy Toys. That was the name of the place. It was in Pittsford, Vermont, and they would be standing in that parking lot because it was lit up, and everything else is dark. But they would be standing near there, so their hiney was full on white.
so wait, that was probably the 70s, right?
Yeah, it would have been the late 70s.
Because that's like the heyday of streakers too.
I remember that song, The Streak.
Yeah. There
That
there's
was
a lip
great.
there's a
Don't
lip
look,
syncing. There's a song for you.
don't look, Ethel.
That's right. That's right. Don't look at all. Um yeah, why was that a thing? There's so many things that like if I had to pick something that was directed by say like Satan, I think it would be streaking more than
That is something you can't quite get out of your head if you see not something
Mhm.
you usually want to see. Plus, why is
No.
it people that you don't want to see decide that they want to show themselves? I don't
Mhm.
understand that. I
It's
do not understand.
it's insane. It's insane. But yeah, and so I guess the other like the well, we're going to go into a deeper dive in McMartin. We're really going to get into how easily. So we already just discovered in at least the one book because obviously old Laurel wasn't telling the truth there,
Oh, Laurel.
but Laurel Rose Winslow was not telling, or Wilson was not telling the truth. But it's so it was pretty easy to lead Michelle Smith down this path. Now picture doing that with children like we just talked about where you even had memories yourself as a child that you're like I swear I remember it but really it's just from a picture I saw and I don't remember anything that actually happened but I remember that picture so I've built a whole story and or you've heard your parents tell the story a million times so
I've got
um,
two memories that I know are not true, but normally I would have swore by them, but I have come to the realization that this did not happen. One was that my parents forgot me at a rest area somewhere out in the Midwest in the middle of nowhere with my dog. and they came back an hour later after they had already gone down because we used to travel a lot. That did not happen because I always sat in the middle between my parents in the front seat. I think they would have noticed if their youngest child and the dog was missing. They didn't just decide to
It's
get in the car. So I know that didn't happen to me, but I think I might have heard it on the news
uh-huh.
that someone, or it's possible there was a kid there and my mother said something like, I hope their parents didn't drive off and leave them, and then I concocted it. So I know it wasn't me. The other one, can't swear on this, but I'm pretty sure it didn't happen. My dad had this friend, once in a while we'd run into him in who knows what state. Him and his family traveled a lot too. And my dad watched a lot of Western movies and he watched a lot of action. And I wasn't supposed to watch anything like that. So I would sneak in, I would crawl into their room at night when my dad was watching TV, and I would literally sit under the coffee table because I was little, and I would watch these. So either I saw it on TV or my dad's friend shot some dude on the side of the road and just left him there because I don't remember.
You have that memory. You're like, that happened.
It's just like somebody died, and I know someone had on a cowboy hat, but my dad wore a cowboy hat. So you see, and it wasn't my dad's because his hat was black. This was a brown hat. So either my dad's friend shot this dude who was probably wearing the hat on the side of the road somewhere out west. If you know of someone that's it's hasn't been solved yet, let me know. Just shot him like right through the car window, if I'm not mistaken. The guy fell. He drove away. I don't know why I was there, why I witnessed it, but
Huh.
and I remember it for a long time, and still I'm still suspicious that that guy just gunned
Was up to
somebody.
no good.
I've even
Well,
seen a
actually,
gun as a
it's
kid.
interesting because mine aren't as detailed as that, but for the longest time, I was convinced that in Starsky and Hutch, so Hutch, the blonde one, David Soul, I was convinced that he was Neil Diamond. So, like, when I would hear Neil Diamond, that's who I would picture. So, I remember the first time I saw Neil Diamond, really, I was like, no, that's now, why would I? Oh, and I think I brought this up during the Captain Kangaroo, and I went into a deep dive about it, where I told you that I have a vivid memory of Tony Randall
Yep.
singing "You Gave Me the Answer" by Paul McCartney in a fur coat with a megaphone.
You're really detailed.
Yes. And I went all through the internet. I'm like, this has to be true. I how would I make this up? And I can find nothing. In fact, I did put that in AI, and they're like, Tony Randall he did sing, but there is no sign that anybody other than Paul McCartney sang. You gave me the answer, and they actually gave me examples of like concerts where he sang it, and I'm like, okay, where did I get this? Like,
Our brain puts the weirdest stuff together. That's why we've got that Mandela effect, because I would just about bet my life some of that stuff is
mhm.
not what they say it is now. Like the Monopoly guy, he always had the monocle, and they were like, he never had the monocle. And I'm like, what?
Yeah,
But
why do we all remember it that way?
I don't. It's like we're getting the suggestions put in our head because. And what's funny is our memory is kind of connected to our ego because as humans, we don't like to admit we're wrong. No one does. It's embarrassing, especially when you are convinced, which is why this is why, like, when the police interview you, they need
Mhm.
to do it immediately because they want a recollection of what just happened. They don't want you imagining what happened because you're going to not remember. Okay. Do you remember back in when was it? I think it was early, no, it was around 2019, 2018. It was when Farmville on Facebook was so popular. Everyone
Mhm.
played Farmville. And do you remember the incident about somebody, they wanted so bad to do their Farmville that they had been horrendous, and one of their small children died because they
Mhm.
decided, well, in my brain, I would have bet anything that it was this young woman that was giving her child a bath, a young child, and she needed to go and do her cropping because you had to do it at a certain time. I used to
Hmm.
play it. She had to, so she ran downstairs to do that and left the kid in the bathtub. Obviously, a bad thing happened. I would have bet anything that was what happened. And I'm like, I know that's true and I can prove it. So I looked it up. It was not true. My brain combined two different events. There was a
Hmm.
guy, a young dad, and I think there might have been two kids in the bathtub, if I'm not mistaken, one or two. I don't even remember now. He was the one that went downstairs, but he wasn't playing Farmville. He went downstairs to play a different game. He lost track of time. He was playing with some friends, and bad things happened. The young girl had a young baby, and the baby wouldn't stop crying. And she wanted to do her Farmville, so she got upset, and the baby ended up having something bad happen to him. So my brain combined the two, and it made this memory that I would have bet anything was true. So
Hmm.
it's like your
Yeah, I
brain
mean,
just decides this is
and then
true.
you factor in all the attention Michelle was getting from this person that she clearly was attracted to on some level.
Plus,
Um,
he must have put thoughts in her head about making her want to be with him in the first place. He had it really easy to convince her to have a relationship with him if he's hypnotizing her and stuff.
right, right. And he was making, I mean, they essentially invented, I mean, they set this ball in motion of what ended up happening all the way through the 80s, because this really was the first thing that was like, look, here's tangible proof that this is happening. You know, we already had the seeds planted by Rosemary's Baby, Sybil, The Exorcist. Now you have someone who's, and by, oh, and I forgot to mention this, they were actually using this book as essentially text to train therapists,
Oh no.
putting all these therapists on a terrible path. Like they used it as, this is what you look for if you expect ritual abuse. And it was this book, which again, none of it ended up being true. And like I said, they've never proven. I mean, uh I'm still seeing interesting documentaries. Like, I don't know, and again, this is if we go into serial killers, obviously 80s, 70s and 80s were the heyday of serial killers, but I mean, there's a documentary with Son of Sam where they claim that this was all ritual killing, that it wasn't just he was a serial killer, he was doing it for Satan, and of course he had the whole Son of Sam, and he was like, you know, but it is a really interesting documentary. Do I buy it? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think the only valid argument in the whole documentary is, I would say that David Berkowitz looks like the least likely of serial killers. Like, he's
Now
pretty.
he has since changed his tune so many times,
Mhm.
saying that that really didn't happen and they never found really evidence of a lot of the stuff he was talking about, that he was just basically crazy.
Mhm.
Because the Sam was the dog, it was the main
Mhm.
dog, so it's
It
like,
was a dog next door that barked all the time and
yeah, that he got really upset about. So it's like,
yeah.
but the whole thing about the fake memories, um a lot of people don't realize it because people are gaslit every day. If you
Mhm.
say something long enough, people start to believe it. And I remember what two things. One, I used to worry because of that whole satanic panic and all the repressed memories I kept hearing about. My childhood was crazy. So I always worried as an adult, like, what if all of a sudden I have a repressed memory that comes back and it's so bad? I don't want to know. I don't want to know about it. Luckily, I've never had one. But the other thing is, me and my brother haven't spoken since we were like in our 20s. We don't like each other. And I would say something to my mom as an adult, like in my 30s and 40s when well, 30s when I still spoke to her. And I would tell her some of the crazy stuff she did with us. Because, back in the 70s, your parents didn't know where you were. They didn't know what was going on. You were doing stuff that was so dangerous. And they just did not even, they didn't even care.
They didn't.
And I would say something to my mom about, do you remember when you did this and this? And she would gaslight me so bad. She either had changed her own memory and it's just, or she's just denying it. And she's like,
Mhm.
oh, you really got an imagination on you, don't you? You just make up stuff just to make me look like I was a bad mom. And I'm like, ask my brother. She asked my brother separately. We don't talk. He gave her the same story. She did the same thing to him. You know that didn't happen. The example was they had one of those U-Haul trucks, just the trailer part, a small one. And I have every detail when we were driving from Vermont to Idaho with two boxer dogs. They had me and my brother riding in the trailer of the U-Haul. That's illegal. It's
Mhm.
dangerous. You don't put your children in the trailer of a U-Haul. And I remember because we had a one of those, those square batteries. We had a battery lamp, like a camping lamp. And we hated each other. We fought all the time. So they would literally stop the car every 100 miles and either give us a little treat or some kind of little toy or something. That's what they did during the travels. And to make sure we had not beat each other up. I could literally draw you how they had like the little bed where we would sit and play in our games and where the dogs were and the boxes. And she told me I made that whole thing up because that was illegal. You can't put your kid in the back of a U-Haul.
That is such a 70s thing. Oh my gosh. Like when I think about us riding, my parents would load like 15 kids, most of which were not their own children. So if you killed them, you were going to be like in big trouble here. And literally in the back of a pickup, no top, just everybody sitting on the edges of the truck. And like, you so could not do that now. You would never
my
get a.
my son asked me about that the other day. He's like, "Why is it so illegal to ride in the back of a pickup truck?" I said, "Because you can get bounced out." I said, "I was so little as a child. I was so skinny. When we rode in the back of the pickup truck, I had to dig my fingers into the spare tire rims to hold me. So when they hit a bump, I did not go flying out of the back of the because it would still raise me up. I would go up in the air.
So
So they
we
had to
have,
like tie me down."
well, and we have absolute proof that crazy things did happen. They just weren't satanic. They were disinterested parenting. They
But the
were.
gaslighting is trying to change your memory like it did not happen. Because I mean, I had written a story about some of the stuff that happened, and I let my mom read parts of it, and she was like, "Well, you definitely have a good imagination. None of that ever happened, but it's a really good story." And I'm like, "Where do you think it came from? Do you, I didn't see that on TV." I mean, I
Right.
literally remember laying on that U-Haul floor because there was a hole in it, and
Oh
you could
my
see the
gosh.
road.
It gets better and better.
It was like this big, but you could see the road. And I remember I would drop little bits of whatever I would find from the U-Haul to watch it just drop, because I could see the road going by where I would spit through the little hole.
Well,
She
were you
sounds
worried
like,
about the dogs stepping on the hole?
nah, it wasn't that big a hole.
Oh, that's good.
There
I
were
would have
big
been worried
dogs.
about the. But you've met Remy. Remy would fall right out the hole.
Well, these were boxer dogs. These were big dogs. So
Yeah.
no,
But
they were just protect. But the smell of the exhaust. Why am I still even alive? It's just on the interstate. Yeah, on the big highway, and she's like, "That didn't happen." Yeah, it did. Yeah,
that is that is wild. That is wild. Yeah, so here you go. We're proving you can have
some
memories, but you can also remember weird stuff that happened. But again, it wasn't satanic. It was just poor parenting or bad decision making or utter lack of interest in parenting. Because we had a lot of parents like that who, I mean, I was thinking of another catchphrase that you probably heard too. You'd come in hurt, bleeding, and your parent might clean you up a little, but then the next line would be, bet you won't do that again.
Actually, I thought you were going to say something else. My dad, being a Marine, I'd come in there battered and bruised, falling out of a tree because I was always climbing trees. I never broke a bone, but I was skinned up a lot. I'd come in there bloodied up and he'd look at it, he'd say something about wash it up or something like that. And then he said, well, it's a long ways from your heart. He always said that. It didn't matter if my chest was scratched up. He'd be like, it's a long ways from your heart. I'm
You're
like,
good to go.
you're
Walk it
fine.
off. Walk it
You're going to
off.
live. You will live.
That somebody know. My parents would always say, "Bet you won't do that again." No sympathy. No like, "Are you okay?" Like,
Walk it off. Just
yeah.
walk it off. Yeah, if you hurt your foot or your leg or something like that, you had to walk that off, or your
I
back.
was.
When I fell
Yep.
out of the
Walk it off.
trees, I was always having to walk that off. No wonder my back bothers me. Walk it off.
Well, and yeah, so we're off topic, but not really, because
Not really.
we're right back to, you know, crazy memories, some of which were true.
The Satanic Panic.
And
My
then
my mom thought everything was satanic because of her religion was, and then of course it would get proven that it was satanic. My grandmother used to like to do witchcraft, and she would put spells on stuff. She would literally put a spell on her neighbor. She put a curse on her neighbor because she said her neighbor was spying on her.
I
So my
love it.
mom my mom thought my grandma was
So was this your mom's mom or
my mom's mom. And my
the,
mom thought that she was demonized. She was obviously possessed by demons. And we were out in Idaho. My grandma lived in Vermont, and grandma had sent us a card with $5, a check, a check. This is the 70s now, a check
yes,
for
you got the
$5.
check.
So we all climb in my dad's powder baby blue pickup truck with the hunting rifle on the back window,
Uh-huh.
all four of us. Of course, I'm next to my dad. Then there's my brother and my mom. We're on our way to the bank with grandma's card and that $5 check to cash it. And what should happen? Car accident. Somebody sideswiped us, hit right on my dad's side. Obviously, that was demons caused us to have a car accident because we were in possession of that demonic card and check from grandma.
Check. You were taking money from the devil.
Well, we went ahead and cashed the check and then threw the card away. But she wouldn't let my grandma send us items because they were always possessed, and we didn't want to get in any more car wrecks.
Oh my gosh.
Demons were everywhere.
See, I didn't have any of this like religious trauma. Like my grandma got me addicted to iced tea. That's about all I can like say about her. I mean, she was a lovely grandma, Grammy.
My grandma was great and crazy.
See, I had a very overbearing Grammy. So both my grandmothers were Grammys, but
Mine was
Grammy
Grammy too.
I think that's a very New England
I think so. She was Grammy.
thing. Yeah, my mom was a Grammy. Um, and the funny thing is I really don't remember, like I remember my mom watching, like the Donahue shows with these, and I don't remember her ever being remotely like, "Oh gosh," like I don't know if she was already doubting it and she was just like, "Okay, whatever." I just don't feel like she bought into.
Well, she wasn't indoctrinated into some crazy religion.
Right. And I also think uh my mom was very much a critical thinker. So I think she would hear these and be like, wait, there's got to be proof somewhere. Like again, how hard was it to find out if Michelle was in school?
Exactly.
Like how hard was it to, and yeah, you didn't have CCTV footage in those days, but I mean, okay, I guess it could be a giant conspiracy theory where all the teachers are involved, but they don't really seem to have any proof of that. And it did get pretty heartily debunked. I mean, it was like, so it's very interesting. It's very interesting how people bought into it, but you can see it today. People will buy into stuff that you're like, does that really make any sense to you? Like, let's put two and two together here, and you know,
Still,
but
I
then
don't understand why people want to believe the crazy stuff. I don't know why they think it's easier to believe the conspiracies than to believe what is the most logical. You know,
what?
they're not logical. So I don't I don't
Well,
know.
and yeah, what is that? Is it Occam's razor?
Hmm.
Like usually the simplest explanation is the correct one.
Yep.
I mean, you can pretty much apply that to everything in life. If you think of, you're like, okay, that was probably the reason that happened. I mean, there's some mystifying things, but uh, you and I have experienced some mystifying things that we can't explain.
Some things
But
we can't, but we don't usually make up a reason why. That's some elaborate story that is just insane. We're just like, I have no idea why that happened. I can't explain it. End of story. Because
mm-hmm,
we don't have any new information. So why
mm-hmm,
make up information? But I guess people just want a reason for everything. So they
right.
will look for something popular in society at this time that they heard of. And people love to, they love that whole aspect. It's thrilling for them to have that conspiracy.
Yeah, and I think people there are a lot of people who are really ruled by fear. That's the
Yes.
primary thing that motivates them is fear. So fear of the unknown, fear of, anything different from the way you were raised. And it's like, again, how did we get to everything was satanic? And I mean, and like it makes sense for like your mom because of how your mom was living her life, but there were not overly religious people that were still like, this is
Well, it's the
true.
same
This
way.
really happened.
It's the same way so-called normal people that have spent their whole life just being normal, and all of a sudden they believe the craziest stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
because they saw something that made them question reality and they couldn't let it go. And then the
Mm-hmm.
more they went into the rabbit hole online, the more they found more stuff to prove,
Mm-hmm.
so-called prove this ridiculous theory, because there's always somebody that's going to believe it. It came from
Mm-hmm.
somewhere. And they want to be part of that group. People love to be part of a group, even if it's
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous.
Right, right. And I mean, and it made sense for Dr. Pastor because he was A, getting the woman he wanted, and B, getting pretty darn rich, I'm sure, off of this book. And, so
Famous.
it makes sense. And also probably feeling honestly in a career like he was groundbreaking. Like he had
Oh, I'm
really
sure.
done something amazing, this breakthrough that he got her to have, when really he just messed her up and probably has messed her up to this day, would be my guess. I mean, she's fallen off the radar, but obviously she doesn't even want to talk about it. So, you would think at the very least she'd come out and say, this is what happened, but she must still be influenced by him to some level that she's maybe even protecting him now, even though she knows none of this happened. Like, it's just crazy to me. But yeah, and we will wind this up because I feel like we pretty well covered. If anybody has any more questions, I would love to find this book to read, but I'm quickly discovering I can't even find it like pirated. I don't know. They've gotten rid of this thing, but I would love to read it.
I think someone on my Facebook page had put a link or written something about where we could find that. I
Okay,
I
if
need
we can
to check
find it, I
that.
think that should be our first book club because it sounds like it's going to be a wild read and there will be a lot to talk about with it. Um, so yeah, I'll check that out.
She said it
Um,
was free. You just have to make a free account and then you can download it or kind of check it out, kind of like a digital library or something. But it was on
wow.
some website
Okay.
she had found it.
Okay. We will check that out. And we are going to set up a date for book club here very soon. Sorry, I'm getting into a new swing of things with a new schedule, which is actually a really good one. So hopefully I'll be more energetic. And next week we're going to go into McMartin. Demon is ready.
I am ready for the daycare. I gotta get started. Ugh, I'm
and
slouching.
and then let us know about the Memphis 3 because that is a really fat but that one is that's a real heavy case too and it's a really extensive case. So um anyway, well, let us know if that's something that interests you, if you already know it, because again, a lot of this we're hitting on has already been done by podcasts, but it hasn't been told by people who lived in that time period.
It's not been
And
done by us.
it hasn't been done by us, and we're doing it right. Anyway, all right. You know what to do. Subscribe, follow, share, hit that bell notification so you always know when we're going to be live, and we're going to keep you, and Substack. Make sure you're doing Substack because we are going to be doing all our live stuff and our book club there. And we know you want to join us, especially with Michelle Remembers, if we can get our hands on it, because that's some crazy crap right there. Anything else, Ben?
I don't think so.
All right, then we're going to say goodbye. Send in your stories. Send them, send them.
Bye. Bye, guys.